everybody, my name is Christian and this is going to be my second video for the Armada strategy, and this time we're going to go over Empire, particularly Empire fleet builds. So as I mentioned in the Rebels video, I like choosing the admirals first and then building the fleet around that. And right now there are 3 admirals in wave 1 in the command in the core set. There's going to be another 2 when wave 2 comes out, but I'm going to go ahead and wait until all of the information for wave 2 comes out before I include that, so that'll just be a separate video. So there's 3 admirals right now. There is Grand Moff Tarkin. At the start of each ship phase, you may choose 1 command. Each friendly ship gains a command token matching that command. That is a great card. Particularly the larger your fleet is, the better, because you're getting 2 command tokens or 3 command tokens, or if you're lucky enough 4 command tokens every turn. That gives your ship so much more flexibility. It gives them more survivability. It allows your repairs to be that much more powerful. You can activate squadrons for all your ships, even though you're doing a different command by using the token. It allows you to increase your speed, or if you're the Empire, usually when you're a Star Destroyer, you want to decrease your speed. So he's a great card. The larger the fleet, the better. Admiral Screed, once per active. Oh, he's 38 points, so he's awesome, but he's expensive. Admiral Screed, once per activation, a friendly ship is attacking and may spend 1 die to change to a face with a critical icon. That's a pretty good card. It's not amazing. It's only 26 points. But he does pair well with assault frigates, because that way, if you roll, you're always rolling several dice, 4 dice, as long as you're in close range. But that way, so let's say you roll 3 black die, you can. Well, this was already a good roll, but 2 of these were blank. You could go ahead and take that one away and give yourself. It says a dice with a face with a critical on it. So even though this is a hit and a critical, you get to go ahead and change that on this. So he's good, especially when you're rolling more dice, so you can go ahead and afford to give 1 up to go ahead and guarantee yourself a critical hit. So he's pretty powerful, particularly if he's paired up with assault frigates or victory 1s. Screed is particularly well paired if you're using assault concussion missiles, because a black critical causes each hull zone adjacent to the defending hull zone to suffer 1 damage. So that is essentially, it turns 1 of these into 4 damage instead of 2, because immediately they can't do anything about it. You get to suffer 1 damage to each side. So you get to take away 2 shields, or if there's no shields, you go ahead and cause a physical damage to the hull on the other zones before they get to do anything else with their defense token. So by pairing Screed up with ships with assault concussion missiles, you can turn a miss into 4 damage. So even if you get a regular hit, or if you get 2 regular hits, it's worth to throw 1 of them away to turn it into a critical, especially if you had the assault concussion missiles, because that gives you an extra 2 damage. So he's a useful card. He's best with ships that have black die. So I think you're going to see plenty of him in wave 2, because the new frigates, the new Imperial frigates are also going to have black die. So He's a good admiral. He's going to get even better with Wave 2, but mostly just use him with black dice. I don't find him as useful as Tarkin when you're just having victory ones. And then the next one is Admiral Mahdi. Now, his power is pretty straightforward. The hull zone of each friendly ship is increased according to its class size. So, small, medium, and large. So, even though Victory Star Destroyers look like they're large, they're actually considered medium. So, they only go up 2. As soon as the Imperial Star Destroyers, they count as large, so they'll go up 3. And the Gladiators, they are considered as small class ships, so they only go up with 1. So currently, with Wave 1 only, Admiral Mahdi, you should pretty much pair with as many Star Destroyers as you can get. With 300 points, 3 Star Destroyers with Mahdi is almost impossible to destroy all the ships. Like, you may not win, but if you're in a tournament and you go with 3 Star Destroyers and Mahdi, like, you're not going to be tabled. Those Star Destroyers just have a life of 10. They can just soak up so much damage. You'll maybe lose 1, but that'll probably be it. But something that you got to remember with Mahdi, if the flagship, which has him on it, is defeated, then that bonus immediately goes away. For all the cards, their bonus goes away once the ship is destroyed. So protect the flagship that he's on, because if there's this Star Destroyer that has 8 damage and it would normally still be alive if Mahdi dies, then that Star Destroyer suddenly just implodes as well. So you can lose more than 1 ship just by losing Mahdi. So just got to keep him safe. But for 24 points, he's a great investment if you're doing a Star Destroyer heavy build. And we'll go quickly over the Imperial ships. There's not obviously as much variation as there are with the Rebels, but we'll just go quickly over it. So there's the Star Destroyer, which is a great ship. It's very imposing. It has an amazing front arc of 3 red and 3 blue, or 3 red and 3 black, depending if you're doing a Victory 1 or a Victory 2. Its side arcs are, not the best, and its rear arc is definitely your weak spot, with only having 1 shield and only 2 red dice. So obviously, try to keep ships in your front arc for as long as possible so you can get much damage to them as possible. I like having the Star Destroyer almost always go at speed 1. It has its best ratio of maneuverability at speed 1, and even if you staying at long range, that's fine. They're eventually going to come to you. If you're at speed 2, you run the risk of blowing past them, and by turn 6, there's no way you're going to be able to turn back around with only the game being only 6 rounds. So almost always be at speed 1 with your when you're on this Star Destroyer. So we'll go quickly over the different builds of Star Destroyers. There's the Dominator, the Warlord, and the Corruptor. They're all relatively good, especially if you're doing large fleet builds. Dominator is a great way if a ship is about to be destroyed and you're afraid it's going to be able to run away, then go ahead and being able to destroy it. But I don't use it that often because 1, it's 12 points, which is really expensive. And you get 2 extra blue die, but you have to take away 2 of your shields. And Star Destroyers, especially with 2 of their defense tokens being shield reroutes, if you don't have any shields on a Star Destroyer, you essentially only have 1 defense token. So it's powerful. It's a great finishing move if you know you're going to be able to kill it, but I don't use it that often just because of the points. So the next one is Warlord. While attacking, you may change one die with the face of an accuracy to a hit icon. If you're going to do this, you should only do it on a victory 2 because black die do not have an accuracy, so you're going to be wasting your money there. But with the victory 2s, you have plenty of accuracy icons on the blue and the red dice, so being able to change it to a hit or being able to change it to a hit is particularly useful if especially if like the ship is already low on defense tokens, or if like it's not going to make a difference anyway. It's pretty useful. It's 8 points. I don't use it a lot, but I use it more often than the Dominator because it doesn't have a side effect like the Dominator does of taking your shields away. Next one is Corruptor. It's only 5 points. The speed of any of each squadron you activate with Bomber you activate is increased by 1 until the end of this activation. So TIE bombers are currently the only Imperial fighter that are marked as a bomber. They normally have a speed of 4. This increases it to a speed of 5. That's useful, but it's not like such a huge difference that I'm using it all that often. If you're doing a really large game and points really don't matter and you're just pulling up as much stuff as possible, then yeah, go ahead and give yourself Corruptor just so that you can get that much further, especially with pairing it with Raymer, the bomber hero. But I really don't use any of these 3 all that often. So next is the Gladiator Assault frigate, which is definitely a ship I enjoy. It's a lot of fun and it gives the Imperial players some much needed variation in their ship builds just because they currently only have 2 types. I like keeping it usually at speed 2, sometimes at speed 3. It all depends on if it's paired with other gladiators or if there's only Star Destroyers. If it's paired with Star Destroyers, I like having the Star Destroyers go at speed 1 more in the middle and then the gladiators at the flank. So if a ship is trying to turn away from your Star Destroyer, then you can go ahead and have your gladiator in. So maybe pairing it with like 2 Star Destroyers that are next to each other and then a gladiator. That way a ship coming towards it has to decide whether or not it wants to run into another front arc of a Star Destroyer or go into a gladiator. So they're great, but always keep them at the flanks of your Star Destroyers just because they're also faster. So if they're chasing something down, this thing can go like this, and this one has the extra speed that can go ahead and make that turn with it at a further distance. I usually do Gladiator 2 over Gladiator 1 just because the point value is only 8 different, but the extra defense dice, I find that relatively useful, and also the reds on the sides, when you're with having it be black die, you're only going to be able to attack at just close range with the Gladiator 1 from the sides. So I usually find it useful to just for the extra points to give myself a red just so they can actually do something and make them use up their defense tokens before the victory goes ahead and attacks. Now, in terms of title cards, there's only 2, but one of them is amazing. There's Insidious, which allows you to, if it allows your black dice battery to be used at medium range when you're attacking the rear of a ship. It's only 3 points, but it doesn't happen that often. Like having that scenario that you're in the rear, but you're not at close range and you want to fire. This isn't that common. However, the Demolisher. During an activation, you can perform one of your attacks after you execute your maneuver. I love this card so much. whenever I have a Gladiator, I always pair it with Demolisher. It is an amazing card, especially since it moves at both speed, moves well at speed 2 and 3. You can go ahead and maybe do like a red dice attack, and then maybe you get them to use one of their defense tokens, and then suddenly you jump forward at speed 2 or speed 3, and you get to attack after you moved. It's like for a ship that can, it's best with at close range, being able to move and attack is just so great, because so often you move and you're like, oh, I'm in a great position, and then they get to go first, and they just run away from you, and you wasted that amazing opportunity. So Demolisher always pair with Gladiators, and almost always give your Gladiator assault concussion missiles. Like I was talking about before, those criticals, they're great. Just being able to do 2 whole damage to the side to get the take away their shields, or even take away at their life, like outside of your normal attack, it's great. Gladiators, like I said before, pair great with Screed and to a lesser extent Tarkin, because you can afford more of them. So if you're choosing between 2 victories or 1 victory and 2 Gladiators, 2 Gladiators and 1 victory, that you're giving yourself 3 command tokens each turn instead of just 2. So you're getting more that way. I wouldn't pair it with Mahdi just because you're only giving yourself 1 extra life. That's not that big of a deal when Screed is only 2 points difference, so you just as well get Screed and really improve the attack value of these ships. And then so those are the particular upgrades that I like with it. There's other admirals, or there's other commanders and stuff for the Empire, but I don't find them important enough to talk about in the video. They're pretty self-explanatory. We can go briefly over the different Imperial fighters. Now, as I was talking before with the with the Rebel video, unfortunately, these fighters are not getting as much love as hopefully they will after Wave 2 comes out, because they're just, for the most part, just not worth it if you're sacrificing additional ships. But we'll go over it quickly, especially if you're playing larger battles. Fighters become more valuable then. So let's first do the regular ties. They're cheap as anything. They're only 8 points, so that's almost like any of the upgrades are usually that. So it's like an upgrade or having 1 TIE fighter. Even though I don't use fighters all that often, I find them, like if you're an Imperial player, just give yourself like 2, maybe 3 fighters, just in case they do a heavy bomber wing, just to tie them up, to keep them engaged. Maybe you kill a few of them. Always give yourself at least 1, usually 2 TIE fighters of whatever type. For any of the ships that have swarm, obviously only get those. Like if you get 1 with the swarm ability, have all your fighters have the swarm ability. So if you're only going to get 1 or 2 fighters, maybe go ahead and give yourself an advanced squadron. It has a lot more life. It has a black die instead of just a blue die. But don't get 1 advance in 1 TIE squadron. That doesn't make any sense, because that swarm ability, you're not going to be able to use it. So, TIE TIE fighters and TIE interceptors, or like any of these heroes, like keep that synergy if you're going to go with a ship that has swarm. But if you're only getting one or two, maybe go ahead and give yourself one or two TIE advanced, just so that they're more durable and you don't worry about the swarm. But if you get any of these ships, get only these ships. Don't bother with the TIE advance. If you're doing a large fighter build and you definitely think your opponent is going to have a large fighter build, Hal Runner is a great card. The fact that any friendly squadron with swarm, so again, if you're using her, make sure all your ships have swarm, they attack other squadrons with one additional blue. So that means all these regular TIE fighters are going to be rolling with 4 blue dice, the same as X-Wings. It gives them a great power. TIE interceptors are even going to be rolling with 5, which is greater than the X-Wings. So Hal Runner is a great card if you're going to be facing a lot of other fighters. Mauler, he's a great card too. He also has the scatter command, which is great. And when you move, each squadron engaged with you suffers 1 damage. So you get to, when there's like a swarm of Y-Wings or B-Wings coming towards you, you throw this guy into the combat, and all those ships engaged with you at distance 1 are going to suffer 1 damage even before you fire. So even if you sacrifice him, it keeps those fighters from moving towards your ships, and you at least get to do 1 damage towards all of them. So, and his scatter will hopefully keep them alive as well. TIE interceptors, they're great. They're 11 points, same as the A-Wings. Just, a little bit more than the TIE fighters, but they have the counter too, and they roll at 4 dice. They're great ships. They move at speed 5. It's hard to go with a regular TIE fighter when the TIE intercept is just 3 more, only 3 more points, and it's that much more powerful. So if you're gonna just get a few, like 2 TIE interceptors or 3 TIE interceptors are a great synergy together, and they can just bounce wherever the map you need them. The hero version of him is pretty good. If a squadron you're engaged with performs a non-counter attack, it suffers 1 damage if it didn't attack you. So, it's almost like an optional escort. So you have to attack him and get that counter rather than attack one of your bombers, and then you're suffering damage anyway. So he's useful. It's not an amazing text ability, but if you're doing a large game, he's useful. But I prefer Hal Runner or Mauler over him in most situations, but he's still pretty good in a large game. Darth Vader, holy cow. This is like the most damage dishing squadron of all, Empire or Rebels. He rolls with 3 blue and a black, and his criticals count as damage, unlike all other squadrons when they're going against ships. So he could conceivably do up to 5 damage in 1 roll, because there's a hit and a critical, so that counts as 2. So if you get a hit and a critical and the rest are hits, like, you can just wipe things out. So he's a great power. He's 21, which is like very expensive. It's I believe the most expensive fighter in the game so far, but he's very powerful. Even if you're only gonna do 1 fighter, maybe have it be him, because he can really dish it out, and people are gonna be intimidated by him. Advanced squadrons, I talked about them before. They're pretty good. They're much better against ships than the regular ones, because even though their criticals don't count, they have a black die rather than the blue die of all these other ships. So they're pretty good if you're only going to be doing 1 or 2, maybe have 2 advanced squadrons. And then here are the TIE bombers. And if you're ever going to see a TIE bomber, you're almost always going to see Major Raymer because of his text ability. Friendly squadrons, not friendly bombers, all friendly squadrons at distance 1 can attack enemy ships at close or medium range. So rather than them firing just here, they can suddenly go all the way out to here and fire at a ship. It's an amazing ability. If you have him with a cluster of bombers or advanced squadrons or even other ships, if they have the opportunity to move and not being able to attack, or go ahead and like take a pop shot at a ship, go ahead and take that pop shot at a ship. Keep them clustered together with Raymer around them at distance 1, and suddenly you'll be able to throw all these dice at a ship. And he's a great card. And for 16 points, like that text ability for only 16 points, like, and you know, he has a life of 5 and a speed of 4, like he's definitely worth it. If you're ever going to use a bomber, make sure it's him, even if he's the only bomber. And you know, have some other ships fly with him. They can go ahead and roll at the longer range too. So he's a great card. Regular TIE bombers are fine too. They're beyond terrible when you're attacking other fighters with only 1 black die. So and their criticals obviously don't hit. So it's, you know, I guess you have a better than you have a pretty good chance of doing 1 damage, but that is all because you're only rolling 1 dice. And if you're going against a hero, they may be able to just scatter that anyway. So TIE bombers, keep them rolling against against ships and not fighters. But obviously, when paired up with Raymer, they're pretty useful. But mostly in bigger games, like I've played against people who, even though I didn't have a single fighter, they had a bunch of Imperial fighters, including Raymer, and I still was able to win. Mostly probably because of luck, but like right now, squadrons just aren't as powerful. So I would really recommend a ship-heavy build with only a few fighters, just to like hedge your bets. But I wouldn't recommend a big carrier build right now, unless you're doing a 400, 500 or more point game, which are a lot of fun. I have several videos of those. Feel free to watch them to see how they go. But for smaller rounds, I would recommend against using a lot of fighters. Obviously, there's other upgrades, but I think those are the ones that are particularly useful. Most of the other text abilities are... gunnery team. One last thing. Gunnery teams pair very well with Star Destroyers. Just for the same reason that they pair well with assault frigates. They have a wide front arc. The assault frigates have that wide side arc. There's a good chance there's going to be a second ship in there or a fighter squadron. Gunnery teams pair really well with Star Destroyers. If I'm only going to do one upgrade on a Star Destroyer, it's Gunnery team, and I usually don't do too much more than that. Intel officer or is pretty helpful. I usually don't put X-17 turbo lasers on them just because not that many of the rebel ships even have redirects. If you're going against assault frigates, there's only one token of theirs is a redirect. Now, once Wave 2 comes out and there's Monocalamari cruisers that have 2 redirects and they're more likely to use it and they have really great shields, maybe go ahead and put them on there. But it's much more useful to put the X-17 turbo lasers on a Nebulon B against a Star Destroyer because they have 2 redirects than putting it on a Star Destroyer and trying to do it vice versa. So I hope this helps. Feel free to like put any additional questions in the comments. I'll try to answer those, and I'll do additional videos on as soon as Wave 2 comes out. But I hope this helps improve your game. Thank you. Bye.